Okay, well, I'm in it. Filling in. What's up, everyone? Kind of look like I'm in the dark right now. I'm like half light, half dark, like Anakin when he's fighting Vader. Which side will I go to? Will I go to the dark side? Will communism fail because human nature? Ooh, thank you for the sticker. Oh, could everyone go follow my friend? Hilusa.nation is her username here. She makes fantastic videos. We met when I made a video about Michael Brooks, talking about how Michael Brooks was like a huge inspiration to me and everything I do. And she actually had met Michael Brooks before, so she reached out. Play Other Side by the Chili Peppers. Oh, I used to be able to play that. She reached out to tell me that she had been friends with Michael Brooks, and yeah, we're friends ever since. Thank you so much. No, thank you. You are a truly wonderful person, and I appreciate your support. Do you love me? Yes, I love you all. How do you play Other Side? Can't do it. Oh well. I'll figure that out for next time, I promise. Takes one to know what. You look just like Thomas from Project X. Which one's that? Is that the jerk, or the guy who like throws the party, or the guy who has the party thrown in his house? Are you pro DPRK? See, what people need to understand, and this is what I tried to explain. I keep trying to explain this concept, and I've explained it in my video response to Vosh on YouTube, Midwestern Marx, and I've explained it on TikTok, but the video is probably like the least viewed video I've made in like the past 2 years. Because anytime you try and actually explain something in depth or talk about something that you might think is interesting, everyone else seems to find it boring, right? People just want me to yell. But this concept I keep trying to explain is from a Hegelian and Marxist intellectual named Domenico Loserdo. I'm not sure where he's from. Not the U.S. though, and which is great. You should try and read as many people who aren't from the U.S. as you can, especially when it comes to Marxism. But he uses the example of a tree. So he says the roots of the tree in the neoliberal tradition, so in the U.S. and capitalist type, countries, based on liberal values, the roots of the tree are private property rights. So the number one thing that society upholds are private property rights. In the Hegelian and Marxist tradition, which is what hopefully we all are here, the roots are sovereignty and anti-colonialism and anti-imperialism. So the people of a nation, first and foremost, have a right to govern themselves. Then out of the roots goes the trunk of the tree, which is economic well-being. Saying that in a Marxist or Hegelian country, people have, we look to create economic well-being for our citizens, and that comes second to sovereignty. And the roots of the liberal tree are like, I don't know, it's like identity politics or growth or something, or the trunk of the liberal tree. Identity politics are the leaves. I'm not sure what the trunk is actually, like civil and political rights maybe. But then the leaves of the Marxist and Hegelian tree are like civil, political rights, things like social issues. So that's where you can criticize the DPRK, right? That's where you can say, oh, they do these human rights abuses that I'm against. And it's with the amount of propaganda that's pumped out there by the U.S. and by South Korea. Everyone, please go watch Loyal Citizens of Pyongyang if you haven't yet. Incredible movie that will probably change the way that you see the DPRK. If you haven't studied anything about them before. But, there certainly are human rights abuses committed by their government, right? It's not 100% propaganda. It's not that this is a flawless country who's never done anything wrong. But you can criticize the civil and political liberties, the leaves of the tree, without saying that these people don't have a right to sovereignty, right? And without ignoring that the fact that the U.S. has tried to take away their sovereignty for the last 70 years. Same thing with the trunk of the tree being economic well-being. You can critique the civil and political rights within the DPRK while still saying the U.S. should not put them under sanctions and economic embargo that keep their people trapped in poverty. Their people have a right to their own economic well-being. As a Marxist, I think that's the position any really well-read Marxist or Hegelian philosopher, thinker, intellectual, or whatever should take on the DPRK. At least living within the United States, right? Obviously, if I lived in the DPRK, or even, closer, I would probably have more critiques of them. So thank you all for the stickers. Very, very kind. Like, I'm trying to think of an example. Like, if I was in China, I might critique the DPRK, right? Because my country's not trying to overthrow the DPRK. And hopefully I can know that most of the information I'm getting about them is not as propagandized and nonsense as the information we get in U.S. corporate media. Oh, thank you for the sticker. And I guess, like, something similar would be, like, it's different because I'm a Marxist and Canada is not a Marxist country. But I don't know, it's almost like me critiquing Canada, being like Canada does imperialism and they have capitalism and too much inequality, but I like that they have universal health care, but they helped out with the Iraq war. I don't know. My point in saying that and drawing the comparison to Canada, thank you for the sticker, is that me living in a country, having a platform in a country where people listen to what I have to say, living in a country that's been trying to destroy countries like the DPRK for 70 years, I'm not going to use my platform to spread negative propaganda or just negative feelings towards the DPRK because there's already enough of that. I'll tell the truth about them, right? I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to lie to cover up human rights abuses and stuff. I'll talk about what they're doing. But I'm not going to be like, oh, today I'm going to make a video about labor camps in the DPRK. Because it's like, well, 24% of the world's prison population is right here in the U.S. And the main problem that the DPRK has is there's tons of U.S. troops around their border and they're not allowed to trade anything because the U.S. is holding them under embargo. So me as someone in the U.S., why don't I focus on fixing my own country before I start, lecturing other countries on what they need to do? Yeah, not that and if there was a critique of the government and the state coming from the proletariat of the DPRK and it seemed like they wanted Americans to talk about it, right? Like, Americans go ahead and criticize our country here because we ourselves have this critique, I would do it, right? Like, I stand in solidarity with their working class, with their proletariat, not with their government, right? So yeah. There's my long rant about that. I'll answer some questions now. Sorry, I haven't even been looking at the chat. I wish everyone could see your videos. Thank you. Me too, I guess. Thoughts on the workers' unions in Germany. So I'm pretty sure the Communist Party is outlawed in Germany. But they're fighting for things like a 25-hour work week, increased wage. They were able to nationalize their wages during COVID. So if you got laid off of work or you couldn't go into work, you still got paid your full wage, which is hilarious compared to the stimulus in the U.S. And I got one of the 3 stimuli in the U.S. and I was pumped just to get one of the 3 when I got that stimulus. But so yeah, Germans got this IG Metall union that's this giant union in most of their major industries that's 2.5 million members or 2.2 million members. And that's why they're able to fight for these things, right? They have economic organization. They have class struggle, right? It doesn't necessarily matter if the ideology of Marxism and communism is outlawed. If their working class is organized and engaging in class struggle, they can fight for things for themselves, which is exactly what Marx said, which is Marxism just in praxis rather than in theory. But Marx obviously said the working class would eventually seize power over the ruling class. Dang, Eddie, why are you so cute? I don't know. Thank my mom. What radicalized you? I have a video about it on my YouTube channel, Midwestern Marx. It's like my path to the radical left, how I became a socialist. It's actually one of the most popular videos. But yeah, the teacher strikes were going on in Wisconsin, where my dad was a teacher. Scott Walker, the governor, cut the teachers' wages, said it was to fix the debt. The current debt in Wisconsin is $21 billion or something, so he didn't fix the debt. Not that the debt even really matters. And he also gave a $4.4 billion or trillion dollar subsidy to Foxconn. It's a foreign company based in China that was supposed to bring hundreds of thousands of jobs. It didn't. It turned out it was just a scam, right? It was just Scott Walker lying and cutting my dad's salary to serve his donors. So I was like, this is messed up. And at the same time as that was going on, Bernie was running, and I was just scared of the word socialism, right? I didn't even look at him because I'm like, nope, socialist, bad, evil, bad, no. And then my friend, who happened to be a very, very attractive girl, who I was hitting on, started telling me how much she liked Bernie Sanders. And then I started looking into Bernie Sanders. Then I started really liking politics. Then I studied politics in college. And now I'm a Marxist man that you see in front of you. He's taken, though. I'm not anymore, actually. I'm sorry. I've been kind of hiding that from TikTok. I haven't been telling everyone. But I am on my own now. Single man. Yo, Eddie, I'm here from France. I'm impressed by your commitment. Thank you. Solidarity, my friend. How badly do you think the Red Scare propaganda has affected the U.S.? Very bad. Very bad to the point where even socialists within the U.S. a lot of young socialists don't yet understand how propagandized this country actually is, and how some of these ideas that we have about U.S. state enemies that are implanted into our brains since birth are just fabricated by the U.S. What do you think about every man's right to roam? I don't really know anything about that. Shout out to women for radicalizing Eddie. Yes, shout out to my friend from high school. Oh, mate, you okay, though? Yeah, I'm fine. I hope single life's going well. Everything's going well. It is what it is, I'm 24. It's not my first breakup. How you doing, my friend? I'm good. How are you? You gonna debate Vosh? Probably not. Iran's election? What about it? I love that Lil Peep video, Eddie. Oh, you did? Thank you. I don't know if I was even playing that right. Sorry, that's a question I want to answer. Any thoughts on Pan-Africanism? Yes! I love Pan-Africanism, and Pan-Africanism is like the best I found. I would do this when I would just start a TikTok. I would listen to Pan-Africanists talk, and Pan-Africanism is basically like socialism or Marxism, right? Or that's a component of it. This is specific to Africa. And they basically explain Marxism and socialism in a way that's not Marxism. You don't have to call it Marxism. You can say it's Pan-Africanism, and it makes perfect sense. So, here's what I mean. Part of Pan-Africanism, part of the idea, besides moving Africa to a socialist mode of production, is uniting Africa into one country and having a strong central state apparatus to protect from the imperialism of the West, and from Europe and from the United States, mostly in Australia. So when you look at their history and the history of every African country, you see that state apparatus for protection is necessary. If they're going to transition to socialism, they're going to need to be protected from these Western countries who have long exploited Africa's resources, exploited their labor, and destroyed them with CIA coup, invasion, and whatever else. And that's Marxism, right? Seize state power and use the state to transition to a socialist mode of production. But you can just explain it as Pan-Africanism, and given the history of Africa, it makes perfect sense. It's like, wouldn't you want a strong military to protect yourself from the U.S., and from the European powers, if your entire continent's history has been based on intervention and exploitation by these countries? It's like, oh yeah, that makes sense. It's like, well, now you're a Marxist-Leninist. I just called it Pan-Africanism. So yeah, I love Pan-Africanism. There's so many good Pan-African teachers on YouTube that I'll listen to them for hours. I love them. Yeah. Hi Eddie, hope you're having a good day. I'm having a pretty good day. I'm done with work, so that's nice. Favorite animal? I like bats. I don't know. I probably got to go simple, like with a dog. But like that's just because humans have dogs. If I had to just pick my favorite animal to watch and observe, probably an otter. Otters are awesome. Any truth on reports of Chinese state-backed money and resources for Mexican cartels? I don't know. I do not know. I'm sure that situation's super complex. Like, if you look at Bolivia, the U.S. is constantly accusing Bolivia, and the DEA is super involved in Bolivia, and the U.S. is constantly accusing them of international drug trafficking because Bolivia grows the coca leaf, which is turned into cocaine. But there's not a drug problem in Bolivia. They just grow this leaf, and then they sell it, and actually, I believe it's in Japan where a lot of the coca gets refined into cocaine, and then, Americans and Europeans snort millions of dollars worth of cocaine per year. So the U.S. says, we need to kill the problem at the root. We need to send the DEA and the CIA into Bolivia and do all these things so we have coca that stops coming out of there. And Bolivia's like, yo, we don't have a drug problem. You're the ones with a drug problem. This is just a part of our economy. We just grow this plant and then we sell it. You're the ones who are turning it into drugs and snorting it. So why would you send the DEA to Bolivia? How is that going to help anything? But of course, we know the DEA and the other apparatus, the CIA, the other apparatuses of the U.S. State Department are in Bolivia to make sure they don't do too much socialism, which is why in 2019 we saw a U.S. CIA-backed coup in Bolivia. What are your thoughts on Che Guevara? I have a Che Guevara clock in my room. He's like one of my personal heroes. I know that's stereotypical. But I've read his 700 and some page autobiography, plus a lot of his just like personal writings, which I recommend everyone check out the stuff that Che Guevara wrote. It's good from like a theoretical standpoint, and he was a brilliant human being, but it's like he's super inspirational as a human being, which is something we have none of on the left, right? We talk about how hustle culture and working hard is bad because we're exploited under capitalism, right? And, it's nonsense being like, hustle, if you just work hard enough at Walmart, you'll eventually be rich. And it's like, no, you're trapped in poverty. But, it's not bad to put hard work, dedication, and all these things into socialism. It was basically Che Guevara's argument, like, you have to throw everything, into socialism. And he said, I'm asking people to potentially die in a revolution, so I need to be willing to die myself for my values and my ideals, what I believe in. And it's just a really inspirational sentiment, and I think the left could use some inspiration, and some motivation and some of that hardworking Protestant ethic, minus the capitalist exploitation. Eddie, wait, did you say you're going through a breakup? If you are, I'm so sorry, brother. Thank you all, but I promise I'm gonna be all right. No need to worry about me. Thoughts on syndicalism is dope. Best leftist literature ever? Of all time? Capital? I think Capital is probably the best work of leftist literature of all time, as far as like how thorough the analysis of the capitalist mode of production is in Capital. Also, Imperialism by Lenin is probably my personal favorite because it allowed me to understand why the things that I hate that happen in the world, like war, happen. Much love from Australia. Much love. The Imperial Triad. Australia, Europe, and the U.S. Why did you mischaracterize SpaceX in your last video? Starlink will allow for cheap internet access. Yeah, there aren't good... It's not like... My point wasn't that good things don't come out of capitalist production, right? It's like, I'm not saying that SpaceX has never made anything that's worth a crap, or, the engineers at SpaceX are just doing nonsense all day. I'm saying SpaceX produces things like, they spend millions and millions of hours of labor and of resources and money on space tourism for the rich, right? Because their whole goal is to make a profit. That doesn't mean in their pursuit of profit they never accidentally make something that helps the whole of society. Of course they do. It's just not as much as if it were organized to benefit society rather than organized to make Elon Musk as much money as possible. And yeah, you see the same thing with like medicine, right? You have like all this money and research and development, and the labor time of scientists goes into medicine for regrowing your hair, right? Which is good, but it's like all those resources could be diverted to curing cancer or whatever else. It's this irrational production we have, where production is carried out for individuals, for the enrichment of individuals. And it doesn't mean you don't have things that come out of it that are good for society. Of course you do, but there's still that contradiction there of production carried out by the masses for the benefit of a handful of, capitalist minority. Whereas we could carry out production by the masses for the masses, and it would make much more sense, and we would have a much cleaner and more equitable world, while also striving, for things like exploration, increasing our knowledge as a species, all that good stuff, innovation, I suppose. I have a podcast. I actually have a couple on our YouTube, but like me and my buddy Carlos, who is my co-editor, who I want to do the podcast with, it seems like every time we meet, it's just like a 2 or 3 hour meeting about the website and about, organizing stuff, talking about details. And that combined with he's in grad school right now and I'm working 2-3 jobs plus wrestling plus trying to make videos and write, and it's a lot. It doesn't leave us a lot of time for podcasting. But please follow my YouTube, Midwestern Marx. I like YouTube more than TikTok. It's a lot easier to use. Yeah. Eddie, I love communism. I have ADHD, so buying things makes my brain go burr. Oh yes, that is the most insane thing I've noticed about ADD, especially since taking my medication now, is I don't make impulse buys anymore. I swear I would stop at the gas station every single time I was going to or from work. I just had to buy something. Or like, especially with books, I was really bad. Like, I finish books before I read them, or before, I move on to another one. I'm not someone who just reads half a book and then moves on. But like at a point, I had like 20 books stacked up that I still had to read. And I was like, wanting to buy more. I'm like, all right, you gotta buckle down and read these. But since getting my medication, I don't do that anymore. I don't make impulse buys. If I'm gonna go buy some food from the gas station, I'll think in my head, I'll be like, nope, don't buy that food. It's gonna be cheaper and more healthy if you wait to go to the grocery store, and then I can actually do it. Before, when I had ADHD, I was just like, candy! I guess I still have ADHD, but when I was untreated, I swear I couldn't help myself. I guess I could have, but Simon got to him before me. Have you seen that Pedro Castillo is leading by like 30 points? Is he? That's fascinating. Did you see my video about that, Simon? One of our writers on the website with us is in a polemic right now with this super high-profile Peruvian academic, and they're arguing whether they should vote for Pedro Castillo or not, and Sebastian, the guy on our website, is arguing that you should, and this academic is saying no because of Castillo's socially conservative views. So interesting. So interesting. It'd be scary to see if there was like a socially conservative Marxist candidate in the U.S. He might be able to win. He might be able to just be like anti-immigrant, but then also be a Marxist, and people in the U.S. would be like, sure. Which is sad. Was confused for a second because my name's also Simon. Sorry. Simon is Radio Free America. And he's a writer on my website, or our website. And he makes great TikTok content. Hey, I love you. I love you too. What do you have to say about Marx's anti-Semitism? I'm not trying to start anything, just curious. I'm assuming you're referring to On the Jewish Question by Marx, which is read that book. He'll explain what he means. Like, obviously, that's like you wouldn't ever publish a book in the modern world called On the Jewish Question that would be considered racist. But he wasn't making a racist argument in that book, or a bigoted argument, I guess. And he was also Jewish, so. Bro, you guys, he has like 6 videos on his thoughts on Elon Musk Lord. Yeah, I should do more Elon Musk videos, though. Every video I do on Elon Musk blows up. I'm like, why are people so obsessed with this guy? Part of it is people like hearing Elon Musk get slandered. But then, like, his supporters every time are so angry. But their comments that they feel the need to go post boost all my Elon videos, so they all get huge. Like, thank you. But they get so mad. They're like, how could you say this about Elon? You are just so mad that he is rich and you are not rich. Like, okay, yes. I'm more just mad that he's a capitalist who exploits the labor of his workers and lobbies the government to do coups in Bolivia, but maybe I have some subconscious jealousy towards him because he's rich. Actually, I do. I wish I was rich. He is real life Iron Man. He is. Ben Shapiro looks like Zemo. I don't know who that is, but I think Ben Shapiro looks like Linus from Shark Boy and Lava Girl. You know who that is? He's. They look and sound the same. Where are you on the political map? It tells me I'm like, libertarian left or whatever. But that compass is garbage. Because, like, people call me a tanky all the time. Like, I would definitely be what's considered, like, authoritarian left. Like, a 100% support seizing state power and using the state to transition to socialism, which is the difference between, libertarian leftists want decentralized revolution without seizing state power. Because they say it puts too much hands in the power of the government. But if I took that test, it would tell me I'm libertarian left. The test uses such weird things. That test will ask, like, to determine whether you're authoritarian or not, which this kind of shows how ridiculous even the word and the concept of authoritarian even is when it's used in modern political discourse. But the question is, like, do you support spanking your kids? And it's like, if you say yes, it'll put you up on, like, authoritarian. Like, what does that have to do with politics? Like, I'm okay with people spanking their kids. I don't want the government to take their kids out of their homes and spank them, I guess. Does that mean I'm not authoritarian? Does that make me a libertarian? Like, what are these questions? It's so weird. The real political compass test that you should take is the German ideology, where Marx runs through all the ideologies and philosophies of the past that he used to make up his concept of dialectical materialism, and then that should be all you need. Then you're just a Marxist and you believe in dialectical materialism, and you can punt the political compass out the window. Sock says hi. Hello, Sock. Who on here is from Sock? That's where the town I grew up in. We all know you make Stalin look like an anarchist, Eddie. True. Critical support for Pol Pot. Just kidding. No one clipped that out of context. Should I go to Myanmar with my bros and fight? If you feel called. If you feel so compelled. I think the test considers libertarian and authoritarianism is a social like scale. Maybe. I don't know. I'm just going to stick with read the German ideology and then read State and Revolution. And then read Origins of Private Property, Family, and the State. Thoughts on Juche? It's just socialism with Korean characteristics, basically Korean nationalism. And it's good for them. There are people, though, who like live in the United States and they say like they're advocates of Juche. And I'm like, the ideology thought up by Kim Il-sung specific to the conditions of Korea? Like, how do you support Juche in the U.S.? What does that even mean? I'm assuming they just mean they like the writing, but this is what bugs me about all the ideology shopping that people do, right? And I've noticed there are like a list of ideologies that Wikipedia gives when you search Marxism. It's like Titoism, Juche, blah, blah, blah. It has like 5 ideologies, and people ask all the time, what do you think of this ideology? What specific ideology are you? And I think a lot of people are literally getting it from Wikipedia. Like I said, read Marx and read everything you can, and then form your ideology. You don't have to say anything outside of I'm a socialist, or you can even use the word leftist if you want. Your ideology doesn't matter that much, and I feel like people are just hyper obsessed with these ideologies because on the internet, where politics is really popular and trendy, and even Marxism and communism is becoming popular and trendy, you can form little groups on this ideology, on that super ultra specific ideology. It's like, okay, the U.S. is currently in 7 wars. We have 1,000 military bases overseas. We have more empty houses than we have homeless people. And, meanwhile, we're arguing about the differences between, I'm an anarcho-syndicalist, Trotskyist, eco-socialist. I'm like, I'm an anarcho-syndicalist, Trotskyist, and I hate the environment. And it's like, okay, let's just fight about this forever. That was a bad example, but, people go, and there are major differences in ideologies. Like the main one, anarchist and Marxist, have different views on the state. And it's okay to discuss those and have those conversations, but there's 200 different popular ideologies in the U.S., usually based off people I love Maoists, but Mao was writing for China, right? He was writing specifically for China. Mao wasn't thinking that people in the U.S. were going to take his writings and apply every single thing he wrote to the United States, because we have our own unique conditions, and we're going to have our own unique struggle for socialism and our own unique theories. Yeah, I basically feel that way outside of Marxism, saying you're a Marxist, and then Marxism-Leninism is, I see why people call themselves Marxist-Leninist Maoists, but I don't know. At that point, I feel like it's getting out of control. How many people's last names are you going to add to your ideology? Would you ever vote for a celebrity as a political figure? Heck yeah, I would vote for Russell Brand. Russell Brand is a communist, for those who don't know. Also, people pretending the difference between anarchists and communists is the same as left and right. Definitely. That's why Maoism is an incoherent ideology. Mao Zedong thought is Mao's actual ideas. Yes, thank you for explaining that, Simon. I had that in my head. Russell Brand is a communist? Yeah, he's got this interview with... Who is it? It's this really popular British interviewer. But they get in a fight... almost, because the guy's like, you say you're on the left, but you call women birds or whatever. And Russell Brand's like, yeah, because I'm from the working class, and that's how people I grew up around talk. I'm still a communist. And he just wrecks the guy. If you read Mark Fisher's Escaping the Vampire Castle, it uses that interview to argue that online politics are extremely negative and we just tear each other apart, and it's echo chambers of negativity, which is one of my favorite articles of all time since becoming involved in online politics. I just feel like it's so true. But he talked about Russell Brand and communism in there. What about Muhammad Ali? Was he a communist? I don't know. I know he was anti-war. He refused to do the draft. Eddie, do you agree with Anarchism or Socialism by Stalin? I've never read that, actually. The only thing I've read of Stalin was Dialectical and Historical Materialism, and then National Question. Tupac was communist? Yeah. Have you read Quotations of Chairman Mao? Yep, I have it in my room. War, pretty cringe, not gonna lie. Couldn't agree more. Totally cringe. Also, Frida Kahlo was a communist. Yeah, I thought everyone knew that. The other, some of my friends got a cat, and they named the cat Kahlo after Frida Kahlo, and they didn't even know Frida was a communist. I was like, telling them, like, that's awesome, like, that's so cool. They're like, oh, yeah, you like her art? I'm like, heck yeah, you know, she's, like, one of the best communist artists ever. And they're like, she was a communist? I'm like, yeah, you have a communist cat now. Congratulations. Love from Ireland. Thank you. Burger King would be top tier if they toasted their buns. Maybe. All right, I'm gonna answer 5 more questions here. Let's get some good ones before I head out. What good questions do we have? Oh, Eddie, you've got to read Economic Problems of Socialism in the USSR. It's so good. By who? Is that the one by Che? I have read Che's book about economic calculation problems in the USSR. You got the same hat? Very cool. Explain the ECP. I did that on the last live. Sorry. Not 2 in a row. I'm not doing it. That's giving the libertarians too much credit. Okay, what are your views on veganism? That's question number 1. If, obviously we know that corporations are destroying the planet, right? There's very little that we can do, even reducing our own carbon footprint to actually save the planet. We need to move to socialism. But if you do want to make changes in your personal life that help preserve the environment, the number 1 thing you can do is stop eating meat. It takes something like, you would have to take like 50 showers to use as much water as it takes to make like an ounce of meat. Because obviously you have to feed the animal and we eat it. So yeah, if you want to feel good about yourself, be vegan, which is maybe why vegans are always telling people how they're vegan and bragging about it, because it's the best thing you can do for the environment, and it takes a lot of mental toughness and discipline. Okay, question number 2. Thoughts on the UN. The United Nations is, supposed to be this international body who governs in using international law and stops bad things from happening, but they are a tool of Western capital. Not entirely. There are branches of the UN who do good work, and there are unbiased reports or good reports and good information that comes out of the UN. And there are people who work for the UN who will come out as whistleblowers and be like, hey, they're lying about this, like recently what happened in Douma, Syria. But for the most part, they do whatever the US and Europe and Australia want them to do. And the Western imperialist powers, and most of the people who run the UN have ties to Western finance capital, so big banks or industrial capital. All right, finding another one. Is Bug's Life base? Yes, I recently rewatched Bug's Life, and it's basically just socialism. All the ants develop class consciousness, and they're like, oh, they can't stop us all. Why are we living within this irrational system where we're all slaves? Let's change it. And then they do. All right, that's 3 questions. What do we got next? The EU, I don't know enough about the EU to talk about it in depth. Y'all don't want to hear me talk about the EU. There's much better people. What is my favorite book? Okay, my favorite book, I was saying this earlier, is probably Imperialism by Lenin, because I was studying politics and global politics in college, and I was like, holy cow, like there's this huge divide between the rich and the poor. All these countries are being held in poverty purposefully by our governments. So I just thought, the U.S. government was bad, and I was a social democrat. And then I read Imperialism, and Lenin in 1917 said once capitalists monopolize and they control all the markets at home, they're going to go abroad and try and overthrow other countries and in order to see their economic interests carried out overseas. And they're going to use the state to do that, the military to do that, because the capitalists are the ones who truly control the government. And I was like, it all makes sense now. And the only way to stop imperialism is with socialism. So yeah, that book just gives you a really good lens of analysis when you're looking at geopolitics. All right. Oh, yes, this is a great last question. Have you read Ishmael by Daniel Quinn? Yes, I have. So I had a professor who very intelligently taught a class about ecology, political ecology, and the environment. So obviously, basically the whole class was us talking about what can be done about climate change. But the first book he had us read is Ishmael by Daniel Quinn. And the book Ishmael is a guy communicating telepathically with a gorilla, and the gorilla is basically telling him, like, humans are not living naturally, right? Humans are completely above the ecosystem, and they're destroying the planet. Humans think we're progressing forward and everything's getting better, and as we get these increases in technology and knowledge, but in reality, we're on a plane that's on fire crashing into the ground, and eventually, you know, we're just going to destroy the whole planet we're on while we tell ourselves that we're doing everything right. And the gorilla says you need to instead live like what he calls levers. He says current human society is taker society, meaning they take from the earth. I believe this is how the takers and levers things worked in the book. It's been a while since I've read it. But you need to live like more ancient human societies who just took what they needed from the earth and respected the earth rather than destroying it to produce as much as possible. So after our professor had us read that, he had us read Facing the Anthropocene by Ian Angus, which talks about how the metabolic rift between human production and the earth, so basically how we produce too much stuff for the earth to do its natural recycling processes, like global warming is an example of that. Like the earth cannot no longer recycle the amount of carbon it has because we're pumping too much into the air. So that's what's called metabolic rift. And if you were to plan production to move to socialism, you could create a mode of production that brings humans out of poverty while also being sustainable with the environment and fixing these metabolic rifts that have been created by capitalist production. So I like that book better, but Ishmael was a great book to read first to make you think, like, are humans just on a plane that's on fire crashing into the ground? Like, are we all going to die if we don't do something about climate change? So, yeah, love Ishmael by Daniel Quinn. All right. Well, that's all for me, folks. I'm going to upload this live to YouTube if TikTok lets me download it, because this was a fun live. So thank you for hanging out with me. See you later. Peace out, Eddie. Keep it red. You bet. Peace out, Simon.